you're insisting on the fact.
I'm insisting on the facts. That's exactly what I'm insisting on. I'm insisting on the facts, and I now have three different versions of the facts,
that Travis Boyles
Department of Justice lawyers
are working on this every
who
single
admitted
day
in court that what you're saying now is not true.
Senator Sheldon Whitehouse did not begin with outrage. He began with the record, a sworn declaration, a court filing, a date, and a number, 781 grants. Across from him sat EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, defending the Trump administration's cancellations. But Whitehouse's question was narrow. Who reviewed the grants? When? And why did the sworn testimony, the DOJ filing, and Zeldin's own statement appear to point in different directions? Watch how he builds the contradiction, one document at a time.
Thanks very much. Administrator Zeldin, on April 23rd, Daniel Coogan, for the EPA, filed a sworn statement in court that said, and I quote here, EPA leadership conducted an individualized grant-by-grant review to determine which grants should continue. He made that statement under oath, and on the following page of his declaration, he said that there were approximately 377 grantees that had received cancellation notices and another 404 grantees who would receive notices within the next 2 weeks, for a total, by my math, of 781 total grantees. Do you dispute his testimony that there were 781 individual grants at issue?
The exact number I don't have offhand, but
you don't dispute it. So let's say that it's 781 or thereabouts.
I did those myself.
His testimony under oath was that that took place. Then, and I'd ask unanimous consent that that declaration of Daniel Coogan be made an exhibit. Then, on May 6th, Travis Boyles of EPA made the following statement, also under oath, also in a court filing. He said, on February 25th, 2025, I conducted an individualized review of EPA grant programs. That day, I decided that certain grant programs should be terminated for policy reasons. So there are three things about that Boyles statement that are noteworthy. First, the date. He said that he did this all on February 25th, which is interesting, because if he put in a 10-hour day, that's 600 minutes of time for 781 grant applications, which means he would have had to conclude his review of each of them in 45 seconds without even a bathroom break. The second thing about the statement is that he said, I conducted, not you conducted, Administrator Zeldin, not leadership conducted. He said he conducted, and he said that under oath. The third thing that was interesting is that he dropped in a weasel word, programs. He didn't say individualized review of grants. He said individualized review of grant programs. Mr. Zeldin, is there a difference between a grant and a grant program?
Well, you have individual grants inside of a grant program.
And you could have dozens or even hundreds of individual grants inside of a grant program, correct?
I know for a fact that Travis Boyles individually reviewed every single grant individually, and I know that I've reviewed every single grant individually, and I also know that
is
Travis
not what
Boyles
the sworn testimony indicates. Let me reclaim my time here.
But the fact
on
is,
May 16th,
we both individually reviewed all of the grants, and I know that he was working on it every single day, not just on one day.
Well, that's not what his sworn testimony was. And on May 16th, DOJ career lawyers who are under an obligation of candor to the tribunal, upon which their right to practice law depends, filed a pleading in federal court that conceded that you had not done individualized grant-by-grant reviews. They were not contesting that APA failed to do an individualized review. In court, they admitted, in fact, their language is, defendants do not contest judgment on the merits of plaintiffs' APA claims. I'd ask that the reply be put into the record, that the Boyles declaration be put into the record, and that an inside EPA news report that discusses that court proceeding be put into the record.
Without objection.
And then yesterday, you stated during your House E&C hearing that you personally reviewed all these grants. Here's what you said. I was the one who made the decision. And I made the decision after doing individual review. I personally reviewed every single grant that I canceled. Now, you guys are going to have to start getting your stories straight, because there are three completely different statements, and they cannot all be true. It cannot be that Voiles personally, himself, conducted the review of 781.
He did.
And that Coogan saw to it that it was individually done.
Others did. It's a crazy concept, Senator, but maybe more than one person was individually reviewing these grants. Maybe they were working on it for more than one day, Senator. Have you thought about that concept? What about the fact
when
that
their
when
testimony is that they did it all on one day? No, I do not.
Every single time.
I do not agree with that, Administrator.
Senator.
He swore in court that he did it on one day. So you can't now come in and say that that's false.
You make a decision on a day after you work on it, busting your ass for a while to get all of your ducks lined up.
That's
not
what he
said. To do all the
said.
research, to ask questions, to make sure you're making responsible decisions.
None of that is what he said.
Because they're not worried that there's going to be some ranking member at the
None of that is what he said.
Who doesn't care about the facts.
None of that is what he said. I'm using the facts as your employees
I
stated them.
I conducted an individual review of everything, and that concept doesn't work for you.
When did you conduct an individualized review
every
of
single
781
because
grants?
We have a zero tolerance
policy. Will you show me your schedule?
Dollars. We inherit something. You don't care about wasting money.
Will you show me your schedule?
You don't care about wasting money, but the Trump administration does, Senator.
Will you show me your schedule?
Our schedule's publicly released. We don't put on the schedule every single moment of the day.
Will you show me your schedule to prove your assertion that you did individualized review of 781?
I'm under oath telling you that I was reviewing this stuff and working on it almost every single day.
And the problem with that...
Because when I was before this committee, I was asked by Senator Ricketts, if confirmed, would I immediately make this a top priority to go through all the grant funding going through EPA to make sure that we are cracking down on every waste, every aspect of abuse, because I have to come back here in front of Senator Ricketts today. And even though you don't care about wasting tax dollars, Senator Ricketts does.
And the problem...
And I'm going to do my job because the American public cares about us not wasting tax dollars.
And the problem with your assertion here today is that it is belied by your own employees' sworn statements in court and by the decision of the Department of Justice to admit that what you say isn't true.
You're not grasping the fact that we would have multiple employees looking at these grants. That concept just escapes you like that's even a possibility.
The only thing about that is that that's not true.
You don't care about 99% of this story.
That's not true according to your own employees'
You're not grasping
testimony.
I don't know what to say to you. You're insisting on the fact.
I'm insisting on the facts. That's exactly what I'm insisting on. I'm insisting on the facts, and I now have three different versions of the facts,
that Travis Voiles
Department of Justice lawyers
are working on this every single day
admitted in court that what you're saying now is not true.
We're not going to waste dollars just because you insist on EPA lighting taxpayer dollars on fire. The American taxpayers, they put President Trump in office because of people like you. They have Republicans in charge of the House and Senate because of people like you. Because you don't care about 99% of this story. You don't want me to go through the list of all the evidence of waste and abuse.
No, what I want you to do...
...in conflicts of interest.
What I want you to do...
...unqualified recipients. You don't care about...
What I want you to do is explain why the Department of Justice lawyers representing EPA in court under a duty of candor have said that everything you've just said isn't true. That's what I want. Get me that answer.
The contradiction in this clip is simple. The EPA said hundreds of grants were canceled only after an individualized grant-by-grant review. Whitehouse's question is whether the record supports that claim. He starts with Daniel Coogan's sworn declaration. According to Whitehouse, Coogan told a court that EPA leadership reviewed grants one by one to decide which should continue. Then comes the number: 377 cancellation notices sent, 404 more expected. By his math, 781 grants. Then comes Travis Voiles. According to Whitehouse, Voiles testified under oath that on February 25, 2025, he reviewed EPA grant programs and decided certain programs should be terminated for policy reasons. The date matters. If 781 grants were reviewed in one 10-hour day, each grant would get roughly 45 seconds. The subject matters. Voiles said, "I conducted, not Zeldin, not leadership, and the wording matters." He said grant programs. Reviewing a program is not not the same as reviewing every grant inside it. Then Whitehouse brings in DOJ. He says career lawyers, representing EPA in federal court and bound by a duty of candor, filed a pleading that did not contest the plaintiff's APA claims. In his framing, the government was not fighting the claim that EPA failed to conduct individualized review. Then comes Zeldin's statement. At a House hearing the day before, he said he personally reviewed every grant he canceled. That is the conflict. One statement says EPA leadership did it. Another says one EPA official did it on one day and describes grant programs. Zeldin says he reviewed every grant, and Whitehouse says DOJ took a position in court that cuts against that story. Zeldin's answer does not close the gap. He says more than one person could have reviewed the grants. He says the Trump administration was cracking down on waste, abuse, conflicts of interest, and tax dollars. That may be a policy defense, but it does not answer the legal question. The question is whether this administration did what it said it did before taking action that affected real recipients and communities. Because grants are not abstract paperwork. They can fund pollution cleanup, water systems, air monitoring, disaster resilience, school safety, and infrastructure. If grants can be canceled without a real individualized review, the impact does not stay in Washington. It lands in budgets. It lands in neighborhoods. That is why the permanent record matters. Not because paperwork is sacred, but because power without a reliable record cannot be checked. When sworn testimony, court filings, agency statements, and public testimony point in different directions, it is no longer just a grant dispute. It is a trust problem. The record was supposed to answer the question. Here, it created one.